Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and some of you may recall that over the summer of 2018 I was working on a purging project and a reorganization of my bookshelves. I purged about 210 books from my shelves, and then through that process, I came out with a bin full of nonfiction books and a smaller bin of fiction books representing a variety of series and a few standalones of books basically that I'm not sure I want to read or I'm not sure I want to keep forever. Books that I want to look at, decide if I'm going to read them if I want to, and then move them on out of my shelves. So basically they're books that I think I can get rid of after I read them, or at least decide for sure if I'm ever going to read them. So I've never really had the right type of TBR that I have felt like would be conducive to a TBR jar until now. So for these books, I decided to start a TBR jar, and that would give me a little bit of a motivation to go ahead and gradually work my way through these bins of books, and they won't go back on my shelves unless I read them and decide that I definitely want to keep them. And if that's the case for any of these books, then for every book I decide to keep, I have to pull another one off my shelf and put in this bin, so that I will be moving out this number of books by the time I'm done with them. So I think in August I did my first TBR jar drawing. I have a separate jar for nonfiction and for fiction, and I decided that each time I draw out books, I would draw out 6 nonfiction books and 1 fiction book, and I would read those or make an attempt to read those before I do another draw. So I have finally finished the 6 nonfiction books. I have not finished the fiction book yet, but it's still on my TBR. I will get it done. So I read 5 of these books during the month of November because of Nonfiction November. And the 6th book I started in November, but I didn't finish it until December. I just simply have not been able to get this video done until now. So it's early January, and I want to tell you about the 6 nonfiction books that I read, and then I will draw out some new ones. So before we get into the nonfiction, I want to show you quickly the fiction book that I still need to read. It's by Willard Scott and Bill Crider. It's called Murder Under Blue Skies. There are 2 of these books in this series. It's called the Stanley Waters Mystery Series, and I have both of them. I will probably go ahead and just read them both because there's only 2, but I just didn't have time to get this done. I started it barely when I was in the hospital with Emilie, and I didn't get very far. It does sound like it's going to be really good. I just really wanted to focus on nonfiction in November, and then December I wanted to focus on Christmas books. I just decided to postpone it until 2019. So at some point between now and March Mystery Madness, I will get this read. Hopefully I'll get both of them read. Meanwhile, today I will go ahead and draw out one more fiction selection so that I, have something in the wings. But this will be the next cozy mystery that I plan to pick up unless I need to read something for a particular challenge that this doesn't fit. So I'm going to show you the 6 nonfiction books in order of my least favorite to my most favorite. And my least favorite is the one that I actually did not finish. It is The Big 5-0 by Bill Geist. The brand of humor in this is just not for me. I felt like it was kind of crude, and I didn't really relate to the time frame, because even though I'm 54, Bill Geist turned 50 in the late 90s. And in the late 90s, I got married, and I was a newlywed, and I was not even close to thinking about turning 50 at that point. I wasn't even 40, and so I didn't really relate to the timing of it. There were a few jokes that are a little bit dated now that had to do with what was happening in the world in the late 90s. So I didn't really relate to it in that respect. At first I was going to power through and go ahead and read it because I'm really not prone to DNF books, but after stopping at page 80 and then skimming through most of the rest of the book, I realized that I wasn't going to be missing much that I would enjoy, and I just decided that this book really isn't for me. So I decided I can let it go without actually finishing every word of it. The next book on the list is the Everything Organize Your Home book by Jason Rich. I've read a lot of organizing books, and this one really didn't do much for me. I've never read one of these everything books before, but I believe that that was part of the problem. This author tried to encompass too much. It was too broad, and therefore it became of very little value. And then there were times when there would be such specific things where he would mention certain specific random items that might be of help to you in reorganizing whatever room you were in, and he would name businesses that had those. And while that might have been helpful when the book was brand new, I think this book is several years old, and when you're reading it, you don't know if any of these businesses are even still in business, and that just makes the book dated. And the other way that I judge an organizing book is on how much it motivates me to declutter and clean and get busy and get motivated to work in my house. And this just didn't really do it for me. I just felt like it was too broad, and it wasn't as motivational as I would enjoy. A lot of organizing books I keep for future reference, and I do have some that I have reread multiple times. This is not going to be one of those. And just a note, if you are looking this book up on Goodreads, that the author Jason Rich is not listed as the author for the current editions of this book. In fact, there's not an edition with him listed as author. It is now listed as a female author, and who knows, maybe the book that is currently available is a better book. Maybe the new author has done a better job, and maybe it's been updated so that it is not as dated as this one. I don't know. I haven't seen a book by the new author, so I'm just basing my opinions on this current edition that I have, and for me, this book was not very helpful. Moving on up the list is Getting the Pretty Back by Molly Ringwald. Now, this book got some horrible, hateful reviews on Goodreads. I thought it was just okay. I enjoyed parts of it. I didn't really expect a whole lot from it. I mean, I think her original purpose in this was to make it a bit of a self-help book, and really it was just kind of an episode of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, but that's okay with me. Of course, I've been watching Molly Ringwald in movies since we were both teenagers. She is just a little bit younger than I am, and I just wanted to see what she was up to. And she did write this book when she was turning 40, and now she is 50, but still I thought it was a fun book, and the illustrations that are done by Ruben Toledo are so cute. There are the end papers, and there's just a lot of wonderful illustrations throughout the book. Let me find a couple of good ones. They're just whimsical and fun, and I thought the book was okay. It's not really something that's going to help me through life, but it was enjoyable, and I enjoyed her writing style. So for me, I think I rated it 3 stars, and I probably won't read it again. So I can pass this on to someone else or my little free library, but I'm glad that I read it. Now, the next book is the book that I've only mentioned once before. When I drew this out, I was a little bit embarrassed because because you'll see in a minute what the title is. I have kept it hidden in this book sleeve. I did not broadcast the fact that I was reading it. In fact, I did add it to Goodreads, but I turned off the feed so that it wouldn't go to my Twitter and all of that. And I discovered, though, that in the reading of this book, the title is actually very misleading. It's actually a pretty good book, and I think the title is there to maybe sensationalize it just a little bit. It's really a lot more than what the title says. If you are one of the few people who saw my TBR jar drawing, then you may know what I'm talking about. And the book is called Is There Sex After Kids by Ellen Kreidman. Now, I had heard of Ellen Kreidman before. She had a series on cassette tape that I bought and used to own, and she has some really good ideas for keeping your relationship going and spicing things up. Now, this book, however, is really a lot more what you might find from Dale Carnegie than Dr. Ruth. It is not an erotic book. It's really not even a sexy book. It is just good common sense advice on how to treat your mate, how to treat your kids, how to prioritize your time between your mate and your kids and other things in your life, and how to make your mate your priority. And it really was a good book. I am going to take notes on a couple of things before I pass this on, but I'm really glad that I read it. I think it was a very good book, and I would recommend it. Now, there was one little part that turned me off just a little bit. In the one main chapter where she was talking about making time for quality time with your partner, she made the statement, just think back to when you were teenagers and you were trying to sneak away from your parents. And I thought, I did not sneak away from my parents, and I don't think teenagers should be doing that either. So that kind of turned me off a little bit, because I was kind of grumbling through the rest of the chapter, going through all my old ladiness of, how teenagers should not be having sex. And so I didn't relate to that at all, and that was kind of a turn off for me. But overall, I thought the book was very good, and I'm glad that I read it. The next book on my list is a parenting book. This edition was actually published in the 70s. It has been updated and published in newer versions, but quite honestly, the advice given here I thought was timeless. This is called Preparing for Adolescence by Dr. James Dobson. I'm going to make sure my daughter reads this. This is geared towards pre-adolescence all the way through mid-adolescence, and Katie's 14. She's going through some of the very things that he talks about in this book. Even if I have to pay her to read this, I want her to read it. So this is definitely something that I will be hanging on to long enough for her to read it. Technically, I'm giving it to her, and then after she's done with it, it can be shared with our little free library. But for now, I really think she ought to read it. I thought it was excellent advice, and I am glad that I read it. And then my favorite book of these 6 nonfiction books is one that I believe I'm going to keep, at least for the time being. So I have already put another book in my bin, and I put the title of it in my jar. So this is Clippings from My Notebook by Corrie. I read this while I was in the hospital with Emilie. It reads like a devotional book. There are about 50 little vignettes that include poetry, scriptures, inspirational messages, and it was exactly what I needed for the time of life that I was in. And I took notes on parts of it that I hope to be able to share with other people, and I just thought it was a fantastic book. I definitely want to make it a priority to read more Corrie ten Boom books in 2019. I have only read one of her books prior to this, and that was when I was in high school. It's called Prison Letters. I saw the movie The Hiding Place, and I never read the book. I have both of those books, and I think 1 or 2 other books by her, and I want to read at least a couple of those in 2019. This, I thought, was just really inspirational, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It has some really nice photography as well, and it was perfect for what I needed at the time. So for now, I'm going to hang on to it. But if at some point in the future I have a friend or acquaintance that is going through a tough time and I feel like they could benefit from this book, then I would not hesitate to pass it on to someone else, because I don't want to hoard this. I want to be able to share this with someone else, because it's just such a wonderful book. So now let's be about the business of drawing out some more books for me to read from my bin. I think TBR jar videos are so much fun. I always have fun watching to see what people draw out of their jars, and I'm really looking forward to getting into more of the books from this bin and just looking through it again and reminding myself of what was in here. I really am excited about reading any of these books. Even though they're not the highest priority on my TBR as a whole, I really think this is a fun way to motivate myself to get some of these read and move them off my shelf. So here is the first one. It's a long title. Okay, so this is a relationship book. Let me find it. Okay, I found it. I have 2 layers of books in my bin, so I had to move 1 layer over to the other side so that I can see what's on the bottom layer. So the book that I drew out is another old one by Dr. Dobson, and this one is on marriage relationships. What Wives Wish Their Husbands Knew About Women by Dr. James Dobson. This one says it's from 1982, and this one has definitely been well read. It's a little bit dog-eared, but it's very short, and I think this will be great. I am definitely looking forward to reading this. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Dobson and his philosophies, and his faith is very similar to my own, so I am excited about reading this. Okay, second book. See what we got. Little bitty one here. Hope I can read it. Another marriage book, Growing a Healthy Marriage. Okay, so this one is Focus on the Family Guide to Growing a Healthy Marriage, Mike Yorkey, editor. So this one I'm not as excited about as the first one. I don't know, this one just looks a little more dry, and we'll see. I will definitely give it a look and see if it's something that I think would be beneficial or enjoyable to read, and we'll go from there. All right, book number 3. Let's see what I get. Ooh, this will be short and sweet. This is the 12 T's of Friendship by Emilie Barnes with Anne Christian Buchanan, and the paintings are by Susan Rios. This is an absolutely beautiful book. This will be a beautiful book to share with a friend, but I want to read it first. Okay, let's see what book number 4 is going to be. Okay, so this one's going to be a parenting book, sort of. The title of this is what drew me in. I think I picked this up at a library book sale. How to Behave So Your Children Will Too. A collection of entertaining stories and practical ideas gathered from real parents. This is by Sal Severe, PhD, and I think it sounds great, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, book number 5. Okay, this is one I don't know anything about, and I was just curious about it. I think I got it in the big windfall of books that we got free a couple summers ago. It is called Live 1,000 Years by Giovanni, Livera. Let me show it to you. All right, here it is. Live 1,000 Years. I don't know if this is anything that I'm going to be interested in. I definitely don't want to live 1,000 years, not on this earth, but it was just intriguing enough to hang on to it until I had a chance to look it over. So there's my excuse. I will definitely give it a look and see. It might even be fiction, but I don't know. I'm not even sure. No, it says that Giovanni Livera is a leading corporate speaker, and he's a magician. So, I don't know. It's intriguing. I will let you know how it is when I read it. One more nonfiction. Let's see. I want to dig around a little bit. Okay, here we go. The Sewing Room by Barbara Cawthorne Craft. Okay, this is one I've been wanting to read for a long time. I had originally planned to share it with my sister, but I think she told me the last time she visited me that she's already read this. The subtitle says, Uncommon Reflections on Life, Love, and Work. This is written by an Episcopal priest, and I believe this is her here on the cover. This looks very inspirational, and I am looking forward to this. I think my sister said that she enjoyed it, and I'm excited. All right, so now I have my bowl of fiction books. There's a slip of paper in here representing a few standalones, but mostly series that are in my fiction bin. And they're series that maybe I don't have the first one of, so I just want to be able to decide at this point if I'm going to read that book. And if I draw out a series that I don't have the first one of, I'll go to the library and get it and read that first book, and then determine if I want to keep the rest of the books that I have on my shelves. And if I decide I want to keep them, that means a whole nother series has to come into the bin to replace the ones that I'm putting back on the shelf. So we'll see how that goes. Here we go. Oh, okay. Cheese Shop Mysteries by Avery Ames. I see it right here. It's on the top of the bin. The only book I have in this series, I believe, is book 7. This is For Cheddar or Worse by Avery Ames. I will find the first book in this series from the library, and then I'll decide if I want to keep this one around, decide if it's a series I want to collect, or if I just want to hang on to this one until I get to it, or if I want to read them out of order or whatever. I just want to go ahead and take a look at the series. This looks really cute, and there's a big fluffy cat on the cover, so that is one of my bookish boxes, you know, to have a cat on the cover, and I think it'll be fun. So there we go. So here are the 7 books that I drew out of my TBR jars for round 2 of this project. Add to that the 1 book that I did not get read from the first round, and these are the 8 books that I would like to read before I do another round of draws from my TBR jars. Have you read any of these? Do you recommend any of them? Have you ever heard of any of them? If you would like to chat about any of these in the comments, I would love to do that. And meanwhile, I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.